If we all do as our kindred have done and refuse to fight for our lives and for our ordinances, they will quickly destroy us from the earth. 1 Maccabees 2:40. I am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away but with blood. I had, as I now think, vainly flattered myself that without very much bloodshed it might be done. John Brown's Last Prophecy. Listen. In these cold nights, ghosts and voices ride the wind. The Ave Marias uttered at a bedside altar by an abuela in Little Village. The ululations of the Sioux on the plains of North Dakota. The man murmuring I love you to his wife in a tent under the Wilson Viaduct. The prayers of a Muslim child whispered into the carpet of a mosque in Morton Grove. The mother and her child walking home with this week's supply of bottled water in Flint. Meanwhile, see the face of power change while the story stays the same. He shed much blood and spoke with great arrogance. The people mourned deeply in every community. Princes and elders groaned. Young women and young men became faint. Every bridegroom took up the lament. She who sat in the bridal chamber was mourning. Even the land trembled for its inhabitants, and all the house of Jacob was clothed with shame. 1 Maccabees. And policemen brag about their crimes over lunch at the station, and armies are stationed and gathering around China, and in China, 8-year-olds make our computers, where computers will eventually replace even those children. And everywhere, children living in apartments with empty cabinets walk down the streets and see food on the shelves of stores, locked behind shut doors and thick glass taunting their bellies, and the homeless gather on the corners outside our churches, for the citadel became an ambush against the sanctuary, an evil adversary of the people at all times. On every side of the sanctuary they shed innocent blood. Because of them the residents of the city fled. She became a dwelling of strangers. She became strange to her offspring, and her children forsook her. Her sanctuary became desolate like a desert. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths a reproach, her honor into contempt. Her dishonor now grew as great as her glory. Her exaltation was turned into mourning. And storefronts close, and factories rust, and lead runs through the pipes of our schools, and another shelter is shuttered in Uptown, and Lou and Diana open their doors to their grown children and teenage grandchildren, and all the while violence spreads and closes in around me, my friends and loved ones. Alas, why was I born to see this, the ruin of my people, the ruin of the holy city, and to live there when it was given over to the enemy, the sanctuary given over to aliens. Her temple has become like a person without honor. Her glorious vessels have been carried into exile. Her infants have been killed in her streets, her youths by the sword of the foe. What nation has not inherited her palaces and has not seized her spoils? All her adornment has been taken away. No longer free, she has become a slave. And see, our holy place, our beauty, and our glory have been laid waste. The infidels have profaned them. Why should we live any longer? See how they destroy us, de-story us, defile our stories and turn them into his story of our lives, caught in their net, worth. See them turn the Star of David into a sign of empire. Stars and stripes become imprisoned hopes, Lady Liberty a Heil Hitler, the scales of justice a currency exchange, and we forget the meaning of the menorah. Just as we forget that the Stars and Stripes were flown on boats that Harriet Tubman led along the Combahee River to bomb the slave estates of South Carolina, and that the Mexican flag is waved by both the Zapatistas in the mountains of Chiapas and the government that hunts them, and that at Standing Rock, where hundreds of tribes have hung their banners, the U.S. flag is flown upside down because a nation is in danger when it places its first people last and values oil over life, though we all know you can't drink it. And this is why the veterans went there and kneeled before the council in atonement, And this is why the Zapatistas cover their faces with masks and their bodies with rifles. And this is why John Brown ordered rifles to be shipped to Kansas in boxes labeled Bibles. And this is why the Bible says the last will be first and the first will be last. And this is why tonight and every year, when I light the candles for the Maccabees, I will always light one for John Brown, one for Harriet Tubman, one for Sitting Bull, one for Leonard Peltier, one for Fred Hampton, one for Palestine, one for Puerto Rico, and one for all of the Maccabees in the making, you and me, and those like us, who rededicate ourselves to the land that gives us life, who light candles in the darkest of times and in the most dangerous of places. Thank you. Happy Hanukkah. All right.